Chuck Hildreth lost both his arms when he touched a high-voltage line in 1981. He lives nearby, and he's become DECA's prime tester for the arm.
When I first put it on, it was almost a scary feeling to have that type of movement next to my body. It had been 28 years that I had been without an arm that would move over there. So within an hour, I was getting pretty comfortable. Within 5 hours, I was doing many tasks, more opening doors, turning doorknobs, picking up a hand drill, drilling wood, screwing in screws. I've actually twisted in screws by hand with it.
To see guys like Chuck, who I've known for a very long time, take a Skittle and put it in his mouth. I mean, it may be something that a lot of us take for granted until you're not able to do it, or until you're around people that are unable to do it. And it's very powerful to be part of anything that happens that brings about that kind of benefit to somebody.
Matt Albuquerque is Chuck's prosthetist. Matt is responsible for the connection between a prosthetic and Chuck's body. Older devices used an enclosed socket for the connection.
One of the best improvements of the socket design for the DECA arm was that we opened it up. It created some airflow, it created some windows in the socket that allowed for tissue to kind of get out of the way, breathe, and not be under that constant stress of pressure, which over the long course of the day is much more comfortable for somebody who's wearing it.
In the official record, you're going to lose.
No matter what happens.
Chuck's become quite proficient at something else. This man with no arms plays a mean game of Jenga, the game where you pull out blocks stacked into a tower and place them on top until the whole mass becomes unstable and collapses. Chuck doesn't have much use for his hook. He usually wears it only at mealtimes. He's figured out how to run his landscaping business without a prosthetic most of the time, but the DECA arm is different.
I never thought in my lifetime that I would even see anything nearly this functional in movement and ability and in ease of learning. That's, I think, one of the key things about this arm is that it's not just the prosthetic, it's the ease of which you can use the prosthetic. And that's what's going to make people more dexterous with it, because they're going to want to wear it because it's easy to use.
They take the signal, process it inside the body, transmit it down to another computer that will control the width.
It's got nearly all the movement I need, and of course I have all this flexibility with the arm.
There's really three basic problems you're trying to solve. One is providing the functionality that the arm has, but that only does you so much good. You've got the arm that can do stuff, but now you've got to do two things. One is you've got to attach it well to the people who are going to wear it, and second is you've got to control it.
And they feed information to this computer, which is wireless, sending signals up to these computers, which are hardwired into 6 computers here on the hand.
The control issue is as complex as the arm itself. The DECA solution for now involves a series of gyroscopes and controls mounted on the feet. The arm is controlled by foot movement.
I send a signal to the computer that I'm in the arm mode, so by lifting my toes up, this goes up. I use my feet to control my hands, and I think in the brain that the feet and the hands must be pretty well connected together, because what I do with my feet just seems easy, intuitive, that it starts making my hand work the way I would like for it to. This computer, of course, will be made into a microchip, as will the other computer.
Both Fred and Chuck Hildreth have found the controls easy to master, but there are other control solutions.
The DECA arm is really an advanced technological platform, but it's controlled using body motions, using a foot switch. So it is not exactly thinking about using your arm the way you and I would. You have to use surrogates. So you have to move your foot to make your hand open and close certain things.
In the Windy City, where the professional football stadium is dedicated to the military, the world-renowned Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago is birthplace of a technique called targeted muscle reinnervation, or TMR.
Because of the rigidity of the base plastic.
That's the brainchild of Dr. Todd Kiken. He's using the nerves that once controlled a real arm to control a prosthetic.
And even though the arm is lost, the nerves remain, okay? And they're like data channels. So what we are doing is taking the leftover nerves that used to go to an arm and moving them to different muscles. So for example, with the shoulder disarticulation, we would take those nerves and move them on to the chest muscles and let them grow into the chest muscles. Now when you think close hand, a little piece of your chest muscle contracts and we pick up the electrical signal. You think bend elbow, a different piece of muscle contracts.
The first patient was Jesse Sullivan from Tennessee. Jesse lost both arms in an encounter with 7,200 volts of electricity. He became the recipient of the first bionic arm.
You said you could go like that.
This clip shows how his chest moves when he decides to open and close his hand one finger at a time.
I don't like it. I wish I had my arms back, you know, but being as I have to wear prosthetics and given the opportunity to be a part of a project that's going to improve prosthetics from here on out for the future, is what an honor it is.
The first time I noticed that I was in the shower and I felt the warm water and I could feel the heat in my hand, and so I hurried up and I finished my shower and I called Dr. Peck and I was like, it's working, I can feel my hand.
Claudia Mitchell, a former Marine, lost her arm in a motorcycle accident. She's describing an unexpected benefit of the TMR program. The operation can restore more than just muscle control.
So one of the surprises we had when we first did the surgery is that we can also get the hand sensation nerves to grow into other skin. So for example, we had a patient where we put the nerves onto his chest muscles. Now his hand sensation nerves have grown into his chest skin, so when you touch him on his chest, he feels his missing hand. This is a really exciting portal for us to perhaps give sensation to a prosthesis.
I think the major advance will be these brainwave interfaces. I think that's really the next big leap forward.
What we're trying to do is reconnect the brain to the outside world. In any case where a person is disabled so that their brain is basically working, but some part of their body isn't.
Another of DARPA's far-flung collaborators is the Institute for Brain Research at Brown University. Dr. John Donahue heads the BrainGate project, which is testing whether an implanted brain chip can control a prosthetic limb.
Since about 1870, we've known there's a little strip from the top of your head down to your jawbone, about 3/4 of an inch wide, and that little strip is one of those folds on the top of the brain called the gyrus. And that little strip is broken into 3 parts. The upper part controls your leg, the middle part controls your arm, and the more lateral or external part here controls your face.
And any movement you make, that part of the brain generates electrical signals.
We pick them up and then they come to the outside where a computer translates them from brain speak into arm speak, basically, or control speak, something that's a simple control signal. And that is actually a daunting challenge because the brain's electrical impulse signal is very complex.
The technology involves tiny hair-like sensors attached to the chip, which are inserted into the brain. These are signals generated by a paralyzed patient currently involved in testing the implanted chip.
What you're seeing here is signals from each of the 100 channels that are coming out of the brain. So each one of these little wiggly lines that's coming out is the electrical signal from one brain cell or maybe 2 brain cells.
The signals travel by wire to a tiny transmitter which would sit on top of the skull. A much larger connection and an external computer are involved in the early tests.
Once we have those signals, the computer then maps them onto sort of a code that tells them how to interpret them. You know, move to the left, move to the right.